My name is Corey Chilberg, and I'm a student at Goodwin College in Leadership Practices in Organizational Communication. This is my final project, Nutrition for Healing and for Prevention. So, I'm a nurse. I've been taught that educating patients is one of the most important ways we can help them to heal. We're also taught the importance of diet in nursing school. Low sodium for heart conditions, low potassium for kidney conditions. Drink more water to thin a cold or a UTI. Maintain a healthy weight as the first step in many cases of chronic pain control. So the thing that makes me the most angry at work is when a doctor does not consider nutrition in a patient's wellness plan. I work in a local hospital, managing the cases of patients who have non-healing wounds. And sometimes I have to be the one to tell a patient to increase their protein intake for wound healing, or suggest that losing weight would improve their lower extremity pain from vascular diseases. I've learned that nursing school actually provides more education on diet and wellness than medical school does. I find this so frustrating in a world of increasing obesity with resultant preventable diseases. So how exactly does nutrition play a role in wound healing? Most people know that malnutrition depletes glycogen stores and contributes to cortisol release, which creates an environment that is not conducive to healing. But it's more than that. Wound healing is an anabolic event that requires macronutrients and micronutrients. Macronutrients like carbohydrates, fats, protein, and water are really important in wound healing. And the doctors that I work with do frequently recommend a healthy balance of these to patients. A protein deficiency, or a deficiency in certain amino acids such as arginine and glutamine, can be the reason a wound is not healing. According to authors Jaffe and Wu, arginine is a conditionally essential amino acid, especially during times of stress. It's acquired from diet and is derived from a catalyst reaction in the body. Arginine functions as a precursor to collagen formation and production of nitric oxide, which promotes tissue formation and oxygenation of the wound. Glutamine, the other amino acid I just mentioned, also helps in the cascade of wound healing. Just like with arginine, the body's need for glutamine can exceed the supply in times of injury or stress. It is involved in protein synthesis as a precursor for nucleotides and glutathione, and is essential for immune system function. Glutamine serves as a fuel source for fibroblasts, epithelial cells, lymphocytes, and macrophages. It indirectly assists in the process of inflammation and phagocytosis, all of which are so important in healing. Additionally, a proper ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 essential fatty acids is important for optimal health. Too much omega-6 fat can lead to elevated arachidonic acid, prolonging systemic inflammation within the body. Jaffe and Wu state that micronutrient intake should also be evaluated and optimized in patients with open wounds, not just the macronutrients. So this includes the consumption of essential vitamins, amino acids, and minerals that support wound healing through hemostasis, inflammation, proliferation, and remodeling. As soon as damage to the skin happens, the body responds by creating hemostasis. Vitamin K is the necessary nutrient that supports blood coagulation. This is in leafy green vegetables, kale, broccoli, cucumber, asparagus. Following hemostasis, platelets involved with hemostasis degranulate and release growth factors into the wound that assist in the recruitment of macrophages and neutrophils. The macrophages and neutrophils in turn secrete inflammatory cytokines, including interleukins, tumor necrosis factor, and others, and that assists in the removal of bacteria and cellular debris. This process results in the formation of free radicals and reactive oxidative species that can actually damage healthy tissue. Nutrients rich in antioxidants, including vitamins E, C, A, and selenium, can neutralize the free radicals and augment wound healing. Vitamin A has been beneficial to support collagen deposition in the wound and can also antagonize the negative effects of corticosteroids on wound healing. Vitamin C is a water-soluble vitamin that is critical in the proliferation phase of healing. Fibroblasts rely on this vitamin for the production of collagen. The minerals copper and iron support the formation of collagen. Copper further assists with the cross-linking of collagen, strengthening the repair process. Zinc is an essential trace mineral for over 300 different enzymes. It plays an important role in the metabolism of proteins, carbohydrates, and nucleic acids. Zinc also maintains structure and integrity of cell membranes, and deficiency of zinc can result in an increased susceptibility to oxidative damage. So what I mean is that there's a lot of evidence that specific nutritional plans can help a patient with a chronic venous or diabetic wound heal. And I think that this is really important in my day-to-day life at work. But today, what I'd really like to talk about is something that hasn't been quite as documented or studied quite as thoroughly. You see, my grandmother was recently diagnosed with dementia. My family is just watching as the early signs of this terrible neurological disease begin to take hold. So I've started to wonder if there could be a specific diet plan that could help her heal, just like the ones I offer to my patients at the hospital. Let me back up a little more. Years ago, long before I was a nurse, while in school pursuing a degree in nutrition, I stopped in to visit my mother at work. She was an administrator in a nursing home. Lunch was being served. There were sandwiches laid out. She asked if I wanted any. I remember perusing the options amongst the residents who were doing the same. White bread cut into triangles, unrecognizable mush in between, overly mayonnaise, tuna, and egg, no vegetables except a soggy piece of iceberg. These people are sick, I remember complaining to my mother. Nutrition is one of the most important things you can offer them right now. Her response was dismissive. Old habits are hard to break. The elderly aren't interested in your new version of health food, she told me. New version of health food? At the time, I think I was encouraging my family to choose more whole wheat products and maybe cut down their meat intake. Was that new? They were certainly not interested in my version of health food then, and they're not now. But what if research showed that a whole food, varied diet, low in saturated fats, and void of processed foods could actually slow or prevent neurological disease, like many of those elderly people were suffering from? My first job out of nursing school was in a long-term care facility with a huge dementia population. It was familiar to me, and I learned to love the mayhem the disease brings into an otherwise monotonous day. And I learned to understand the diet restrictions that frequently accompany this disease. Dysphagia is unpleasant for many. Pureed, bland foods served on a tray on a strict schedule, snacks full of processed sugar, perhaps even supplements, unrecognizable ingredients except for the sugar, the aspartame, and the natural flavors. Certainly not the food I would choose if my caloric intake was severely decreased and my health was quickly failing. A superfood with life-saving abilities would be preferable, if such a thing existed. Leo Galland suggests that it's not one food that can cure us all, but in fact a nutrient-dense diet. Instead of focusing on eating less food or eating less calories to maintain a healthy weight, he says we should be focusing on getting more for our bite. Nutrients that can be found in healthy whole foods include micronutrients, like essential vitamins, trace minerals, and electrolytes, plus macronutrients, which are both simple and complex carbs, proteins or amino acids, and different types of healthy fats. Whole foods provide lots of essential nutrients and none of the empty calories that processed foods offer. Some of the most nutritionally dense foods known are seaweed, liver, collards, kale, dandelion greens, broccoli rabe, exotic berries like goji and acai, spinach, watercress, and arugula, broccoli, cauliflower, red peppers, garlic. So I've always had an interest in healthy eating and a broad palate. So I asked, is there a diet that makes dementia and other cognitive diseases preventable? What if there's evidence to show that with a proper nutrient, plant-based whole food diet, progression of neurological diseases can be slowed? What if instead of empty, sugar-based calories, the elderly were given nutrient-dense foods designed to repair their neurological function? Could a difference be made in the world? We know a healthy weight is crucial. Galland says that the critical link between obesity and chronic diseases is in the inflammation. It affects the joints, the blood vessels, the heart, and especially the brain. But inflammation also actually disables the body to fight obesity by developing a resistance to the hormone leptin and creating a positive feedback loop. By controlling obesity and eating a nutrient-dense diet, he states neurodegenerative diseases can be prevented. Foods that are all natural, not man-made, that are naturally low in calories and naturally high in nutrients can help to prevent neurological diseases, he says. Martha Claire Morris, a professor at Rush University, talks about two well-known diets that show cognitive benefits. She's designed an eating plan to preserve brain function. Among food groups, fish and vegetable consumption and a low saturated to unsaturated fat ratio have been associated with slower cognitive decline. One of the problems has to do with glucose. Glucose is the end product of carbohydrate metabolism. A healthy diet should have a lot of carbohydrates, simple carbs like an apple, and complex carbs like whole wheat bread. As we age, our neurons use less glucose, partly because the neurons are less able to process it into energy, and partly because they're programmed to need less. Either way, this results in less energy for our brain cells. This has been described as a vicious cycle of neuron exhaustion. Neurons need energy to maintain cognizance, and they need even more energy to heal if a neurological deficit is present. So we need to eat enough of the right kind of carbs consistently for our entire lives. Again, for example, malnutrition in childhood has shown a direct link to neurodegenerative diseases later in life. The diet Martha Claire Morris cites calls for 1 daily serving of green leafy vegetables, 2 of other vegetables, 1 of berries, and 3 of whole grains. Fish should be eaten at least once weekly. Consumption of olive oil, nuts, and beans is encouraged, and cheese, sweets, red meats, and fast foods minimized. Similarly, a number of well-known clinical phenomena point to the possibility that micronutrients, or the lack of, may play a role in the development of dementia. Homocysteine levels in the blood rise when there is a deficiency in B12 and folate, which is common in the elderly with cognitive decline. Also, the antioxidant vitamins C and E can positively influence the neural inflammation and oxidative damage which takes place in the development of dementia. And omega-3 fatty acids are an essential element in combating the inflammation and amyloid bundles that develop in dementia. Vitamin E deficiencies in particular, according to Rondanelli et al., need to be a leading agent for the change in the lifestyles of the elderly to prevent specific age-related pathologies. The optimum diet therapy to avoid high inflammation and oxidation, which is often the cause of these conditions, such as cognitive impairment, must aim at achieving specific nutritional goals, he says. Maintaining body weight and increasing their intake of all foods rich in vitamin E, so derivatives of oily seeds like wheat germ oil, olive oil, nuts like hazelnuts, walnuts, and almonds, and cereals rich in vitamin E. Even after all this evidence, I wanted to hear it from a nurse. Elaine Jennings states in the Journal of Community Nursing that there is consistent evidence that adherence to a Mediterranean diet may lower the risk of cognitive decline and dementia. A 6.5-year study showed that those that adhered to a Mediterranean diet with high cereals, fruits, fish, legumes, and vegetable content, supplemented with extra virgin olive oil, had better cognitive function and less incidence of mild cognitive impair. In an effort to encourage better nutrition, she states that the mental health of patients presenting to community nurses with physical health problems should be routinely considered when deciding how best to plan care. I agree with her that regular and consistent healthy eating messages should be routinely included in a holistic nursing care plan. And I wish I understood the disconnect for so many people who know they would benefit from a healthier diet, yet continue to eat for convenience or cravings instead of cognitively. Because in reality, I often find that education isn't enough. My patients usually know they're overweight and generally agree that losing weight would help their health conditions. And my patients aren't outliers. The Nielsen Group published a report stating that 75% of Americans believe they can manage many of their health issues through nutrition. Yet 50% say they're not willing to give up taste for health. So here's our disconnect. And I look to you, the general American public, to see if this is a problem we can begin to fix. We're all smarter now than we were when we needed our eat everything in sight reflexes from the caveman days. We have self-control, and we have cognitive decision-making, and the ability to obtain natural healthy foods. So we need to start making these smarter decisions for ourselves, for our children, and for our elderly parents. We can enable our bodies to heal wounds with a specific combination of micro and macronutrients. And there is some evidence to show that neurological diseases can be avoided with a nutrient-rich diet. I'm looking forward to what the science shows us is possible in the future. Until then, let's let every time we forget to eat healthy just be a reminder of the cognitive deficits that are creeping in on us.